Hello everybody and welcome back for another featured build. Today we have got a dual wield 2H stamina sorcerer in medium armor by the one and only Lyar. This is a incredibly strong build. It pushes over 5.3k weapon damage fully buffed. The alt gen on this build is absolutely nuts and we're sitting at soft cap armor values. It has got a ton of healing power. It is such a fantastic brawling build, and the buff coverage on this build is pretty incredible. We've got major and minor protection, major and minor expedition. So yeah, really solid build for the stamina sorcerer. Just fantastic at getting in people's faces, dealing a lot of damage, and surviving while you do it. So a massive shout out to Lyar. Thank you so much, man, for sending this build in, and thank you so much for sending in that awesome gameplay footage as well. Please check out this guy's YouTube and Twitch channels. We've got links to both in the description below. He is a really fantastic guy and he's been playing ESO a long time. So show the love and drop this man a sub if you guys can. And let's jump right into it. So, to begin, Lyar has picked Nord for his Sorcerer, and he picked Nord because it is just a great all-around bulky choice for the Sorc. It pairs really well with Sorc because Sorc also gets cheaper ultimates, so the Nord alt gen just pairing up with that, meaning you can dump out more ultimates on this than you would if you weren't a Nord. And then, of course, Nord gets that nice physical spell resistance buff. It's just going to be good for PvP in general because adding that extra bulk to your build just helps a lot with staying alive in PvP. So yeah, Nord brings this build together quite well, I think. Other options are, of course, going to be something like Orc, a really good option for a Stam Sorc, and of course a Wood Elf will work well too. And even Imperial could be a good option for this build as well. And then, of course, there is Redguard, just a solid stamina race all around. Now, taking a look at the max stats on this build, we've got some pretty nice max stat. Lyar just sporting some really nice max mag, max health, and max stam for a medium armor build. We've got 32k nearly stamina, 26.5k health, and 11.5k magicka. That's pretty awesome. We got a lot to work with here. There aren't a ton of magicka skills on this build, so 11.5k mag is more than enough for this spec. 26.5k HP pairing really well with the higher resist that this build is sporting when we buff up, and we'll show you guys the buffed up resists in a bit. So really nice in that aspect. And then, of course, the 32k stam, absolutely fantastic for outgoing damage and healing. Now, taking a look at the regen side of things, we're going to buff up with the potion so you guys can see the regen of this build fully buffed. On the front bar, we've got 600 mag recovery, 900 health recovery, and 1865 stamina recovery. Of course, the Sorcerer has Dark Deal to return a little bit more stamina as well, so that's going to be part of the sustain. All in all, this is pretty good recovery for the build. Lyar's invested quite a bit into heavy attacks as well, so we're going to get a lot of sustain back from that too. And of course, we have... And now on the back bar, there's a little bit more sustain, but that is because I have the perfected Black Rose dual wield on the back bar here. On the live server, the perfected dual wield can be tough to get, and the normal version is much easier to farm, so don't feel like you have to get it for this build, but it does help for a little bit more sustain on that back bar. Now, taking a look at the weapon damage on this build, on the front bar, we have got 3,766 weapon damage with 36.5% crit. Pretty good weapon damage for this build. Now, of course, we have the weapon spell damage enchant on the front maul here, so that's going to bring us up about 400 more weapon damage to around 4,200. And then finally, Lyar is running the Fury set with max stacks of Fury on this build. You can hit well over 5.2 to up to 5.3k weapon damage on this spec. And then if you get the continuous assault buff on top of it, you can push 6k weapon damage on this build fully buffed. So an absolute massive amount of weapon damage on this build, and it's going to help out with a lot. It's going to help out with the damage, the healing, everything. Really fantastic for this build. Now, taking a look at the resists on this spec, we're going to buff up again with the armor here. And you guys can see we've got 26k spell resist and 27.6k physical resist and 2,600 crit resist. So nice base resists on this build, especially for medium armor. That's pretty sweet. And then we've got Blood Spawn on top of it. So fully buffed, we've got 32k spell resist and 34k physical resistance on this build with Blood Spawn procced. And of course, Blood Spawn is going to play into that ultimate gen as well, just more synergy with the Nord there. Really fantastic all-around defense for this build. Honestly, medium armor sitting at that soft cap resist mark, really good stuff, especially with the amount of weapon damage we have. Really nice stats on this build all around. Now, taking a look at the Mundus we've got, Lyar has picked the Serpent Mundus for a little bit more stamina recovery. I like this choice here because, well, gives him that sustain he needs. I think that without the Serpent, you wouldn't have enough sustain to make this build really work out. If you guys want to play this build in the non-CP campaigns, I would recommend perhaps taking off a weapon damage glyph for even more stamina recovery. Otherwise, this build should be fine. And then the food that we're running on this spec, Lyar has gone with the Artaeum Takeaway Broth. This is, of course, one of, if not the best, all-around food for a stamina build in PvP. It's going to give us the max health, it's going to give us the max stamina, and of course the health and stamina recovery. Everything's going to help on this build. We need all of this. And then, of course, if you can't afford this food, you can always go with the Dubious Cameron Throne. It doesn't give you the health recovery, but it gives you everything else that this food does, and it's a lot cheaper, so it's up to you what you want to use if the cost is an issue. And then for the potion on this build, Lyar has gone with the Essence of Weapon Crit, and this is going to be great just for all-around sustain for our stamina, giving us the Major Savagery buff, which is great for outgoing damage and healing, and then finally the health recovery buff, and of course the Restore of the Health. So a little bit of a burst heal there, and the health recovery is going to be nice with the food that we have. It's not a huge amount that we get, but still, everything plays into that survival in PvP. So just a great all-around potion for this spec. Now, let's take a look at the gear that Lyar is running to put this build together. So the first set that we've got is one that we mentioned already. We've got the Bloodspawn set on, and this is going to be great for the build. It gives stamina recovery, it gives ultimate generation when you take damage, and of course, that physical spell resistance bonus when you take damage as well. Really, really great for this build because it is a brawler spec, so the increased bulk that we get is going to help out a lot. The increased alt gen mixed with the Nord, mixed with Sorc, it means we're going to be dumping alts like crazy on this spec, and the stam recovery is also fantastic for that sustain. Now, the next set that Lyar's got is the Fury set, and we talked a little bit about this too. We've got max health, max stam, and weapon damage, and when we take critical damage, we gain 30 weapon damage for 6 seconds, stacking up to 25 times. Now, this just allows you to push absolutely insane weapon damage on this build. If we have full stacks of Fury up, we get 750 base weapon damage on this spec, and it works really well with this medium armor build because Lyar has got quite a bit of bulk on it and quite a bit of healing power as well. So it allows him to build up those Fury stacks on this build and just punch out really huge amounts of damage. And then, of course, Fury on a medium armor build is a really good synergy because that weapon damage gets pushed even further by that 15% weapon damage bonus we get for wearing 5 medium. Now, the next set that we've got on is the Spriggan set, and Lyar is running this in the gear here and only on the front bar, and this is really fantastic for outgoing damage. Spriggan's is going to give you that physical penetration on the 5-piece, the max stam, and the weapon damage in the 2, 3, 4. Penetration is the largest determiner of outgoing damage out of anything in this game. If you stack more and more penetration, you will hit people harder and harder in PvP than if you stack anything else. So yeah, that's why he's gone for the penetration here, just giving him that big bulk damage on the front bar here, allowing this build to push over 6k physical penetration, fully buffed up. Allowing this build to push over 6k physical penetration as well on the front bar, so just great for a medium armor build to have that additional damage from this set. Now, for the last set that Lyar's got, he's running the Black Rose on the back bar here. Now, in the build he sent me, he does not have the perfected version, but we're on the PTS, so we threw the perfected version on here. The difference between the two is, of course, that we get a little bit more stamina recovery in the 2-piece here with the perfected versus just getting the flat Blade Cloak Major Protection if we had the normal version of these axes. But that Major Protection, when we activate Blade Cloak, so good for this build. It gives us Major Protection, which is a 30% damage reduction. That is absolutely massive in PvP, synergizing yet again with the Fury set. And the fact that Lyar is using Quick Cloak just adds more synergy to the Blade Cloak here, because we get the Major Protection, we can use it to move away from the fight, and of course the damage we take is reduced and stacking more Fury stacks on the build. Now, let's take a look at the weapon traits that we've got on this build as well. So for the back bar here, Lyar's actually gone with both Nirnhoned weapons, and I think the reason he went with double Nirnhoned is because he's running dual axes. Dual axes, of course, is going to have that 16% chance to apply a bleed, and Nirnhoned is going to be the best determiner for the increased bleed damage on dual axes. Precise is also a decent option here, but Precise won't give you that bonus damage that Nirnhoned does when you switch to the front bar, so I definitely think that Nirnhoned is the best bet here, even though it's a little bit more expensive of a choice because it will cost you some transmutes. Now, for the poison on the back bar, Lyar has gone with the lethal poison or the double dot poison here. We, of course, have the crown version because we're on the PTS, but you can craft this poison yourself. It's the exact same thing, and it applies 2 damage over time splats when you attack them. And yeah, really great for the back bar dual wield, especially because the heavy attack is 2 separate attacks, and then blood craze as well for 2 more separate attacks. So an 80% chance to apply the poison with just a heavy attack blood craze. Really nice for this build. And then on the front bar, Lyar has gone with a Nirnhoned Maul, and he's gone with the weapon spell damage enchant on the Maul as well. I really like the Nirnhoned choice here, just pushing that weapon damage even further, especially in medium armor, a really good option. And of course, the weapon spell damage enchant, even though we don't have the infused weapon here, it's still going to be up about half the time and give us a pretty big bonus to the outgoing damage on this build and the outgoing healing, so really nice for that as well. Now, Lyar has gone with the Maul on the 2H here, and I think the Maul is the best choice for the skill set that he's running. The Maul, of course, is going to increase your penetration proportional to the amount of armor that your opponent has. So the tankier your opponent is, the more you get out of the Maul. And I think because especially he's running Dawnbreaker as the ultimate, this is the way to go. Now, taking a look at the jewelry on this build, Lyar has got a mix of protective and a single infused as well. The 2 protective traits, of course, so great. It's going to allow this build to push that soft cap, physical, and spell resist. So I think that's what Lyar was trying to go for here. And then the infused just to give this build a little bit more weapon damage on these enchants. So all of the enchants, of course, are weapon damage on this build, just pushing that damage even further. Now, for the gear, guys, Lyar has gone with 6 pieces of impenetrable and a single piece of well-fitted. I really like this choice. I think that the 1 well-fitted is definitely a good call because we are in medium armor here, but the 6 impen just fits really well with that Fury playstyle, just soaking up that damage. The impen, of course, is going to reduce the critical damage you take, and you're going to turn that critical damage into weapon damage, so really nice for that. Now, for the enchants on the gear, Lyar's gone with a mix of the Tri-Stat Hacky Joes and just stamina enchants. The Hacky Joes, of course, are on the big pieces here to get the most out of them, and then the rest are just going to be the plain old stamina enchants here. Alright, so let's take a look at the skill set that Lyar's running on this build. So for the first bar here, this is the 2H bar, which is kind of the primary burst bar. Now, both bars actually share really similar weapon damage, crit rates, and maximum stamina, so both bars have pretty equal outgoing damage output. So if you do want to swap some skills around on this build, maybe even run Dawnbreaker on the other bar for whatever reason you want, you could do that. And you've got a bit of flexibility just because of the fact that the stats are fairly equal all around. Now, taking a look at the first skill on this bar, we've got Resolving Vigor, and a nice big tooltip on this for Lyar's build, 17k Resolving Vigor, and this will get much higher as we get those Fury stacks, and of course the weapon damage enchant on top of it. This is going to be the primary heal for the build though. Resolving Vigor is just going to be the heal you pound when you need that extra bit of healing power. This build is rocking a lot of healing over time, so yeah, this just pairs really well with all of that. The next skill that Lyar's got is, of course, Streak. This is going to be great for not only mobility, but a great AoE stun on top of everybody as well. In the Elsweyr patch, this now scales off your highest offensive stats, so the Streak can actually deal a decent amount of damage as an AoE for the Stamina Sorcerer now, so I think that that's worth mentioning, but primarily you're going to be using this for the mobility and, of course, that really big AoE stun. You cannot spam Streak on this build more than 2 or 3 times at the most, so yeah, make sure you use your streaks wisely on a spec like this. And then the next ability we've got is Reverse Slice. This is going to be the primary execute for the build. Lyar went with the Reverse Slice morph, I think, because he wants to just have a little bit more AoE pressure. For a brawler style build, I definitely think that the AoE pressure is the way to go, pairing really well with the Dawnbreaker and the Hurricane that we have for that extra AoE too. Now, the next ability we have is Dizzying Swing, and this is going to be your primary combo move for this build. You're going to open up with the light attack into the Dizzy Swing, and then follow it up with either the Reverse Slice or the Dawnbreaker or whatever else you got to use at the moment. But this is going to be a nice big amount of damage on this build. We've got a 13.7k tooltip on it, and this just goes up further and further as we get those Fury stacks. So yeah, big combo setter here. The stun, of course, and the knockback for 4 meters is just great to allow you to finish off your opponents too. Now, the next skill that we've got is Forward Momentum, and Lyar picked this for that snare immunity that it offers, as well as the major brutality and a little bit of a heal over time. I think it's primarily here for that snare immunity, though, because we do get the brutality from Surge anyway. The heal over time is always nice, too, just adding more healing power to this build, but pretty much when you need to stay mobile, forward momentum is going to be there for you and allow you to stay on your toes. Now, the ultimate that Lyar's running on the front bar here is, of course, Dawnbreaker of Smiting. We'll buff up so you guys can see 16.4k tooltip without the Fury stacks. Really nice stuff. This is going to be a huge AoE smack and, of course, a dirty amount of damage over time as well. Almost a 16k tooltip over the 6 seconds. And it's going to stun everybody that it hits, and it's undodgeable, so a really nice ultimate for a Stamina Sorcerer, just allowing you to get those really good kills, especially against a rolling target. Just big burst all in all coming from this. And of course, the Dawnbreaker of Smiting has the cost of 107 ultimate because we are on a Sorcerer. Mixed with the Blood Spawn and being a Nord, you will be putting out a lot of Dawnbreakers on this build. Now, taking a look at the back bar, this is kind of the support bar for the build / the combo setter, because we do have some dot up here as well. The first skill that Lyar has is Critical Surge, one of, if not the best kind of heals that a Stamina Sorc gets. Huge amount of healing every second, every time you deal a critical strike damage. And yeah, this can occur once every 1 second. You get about a 4k heal, and it's going to be the major brutality. So 2 sources of brutality. It does not stack, I'm sorry, but still we have 2 sources of it. The amount of heal you get from this is going to be really great paired with the Hurricane. It just fits really well into that brawler style build that Lyar's playing on this. It's going to allow you to have a lot of healing power as long as you have somebody sitting on top of you. So really great for that. Now, the next skill that we've got is Dark Deal. This is going to be here for, of course, a bit of a burst heal and the stamina return that it gives. You can turn Magicka into stamina, and you get quite a bit of stamina. You get 3,600 stamina instantly and 2,400 over 20 seconds. And, of course, that 10k burst heal. Just nice sustained skill for the Sorc all around. Now, the next skill we've got is Blood Craze, and this is going to be the primary dot for the build. It's going to deal just a bit of upfront damage, 2,400 times 2 with each weapon, because each one will hit. So 5k physical damage up front, and then the 11k dot over 10 seconds. And then while they're dotted up, you also heal for 1,600 health every 2 seconds. Another heal over time on this build. We've got 4 heals over time now on this spec, so a lot of healing power just from using your offensive abilities here and rotating on them. Really good ability for this build. Of course, it's very, very cheap too, which makes it easy to spam on quite a few targets as well. Now, the next skill that we've got is, of course, Hurricane. This is going to be access to that minor movement speed buff, the minor expedition. And we get the major expedition from the quick cloak as well, so a lot of movement speed coming out of this. Really nice for medium armor, which gets the bonus sprint speed as well. It's going to deal a bit of physical damage every 1 second for 15 seconds, increasing by up to 150% more as the ability goes on, and it's going to increase in size as well. So a really great skill all around, synergizing, like I said earlier, with the critical surge, giving us that healing power when we're on top of opponents. And of course, this is our armor buff for the physical spell resistance bonuses as well. And then the last normal skill that we've got here is Quick Cloak, and this is here for a couple reasons. The first reason, of course, that major expedition for the movement speed. The second reason, because it deals more AoE damage around your character as well, synergizing yet again with the critical surge, so just more healing power coming out of that. And then finally, this gives us major evasion to reduce the amount of damage we take from AoE attacks by 25%. And we have the Black Rose dual wield bar for the major protection as well. So we managed to cut a massive amount of incoming damage just by using Quick Cloak on this build. It's a really nice skill for this spec in particular because it gives you not only the movement-based ability, but it also gives you that defensive bulk as well. So defense and movement at the same time, especially on something like a Stamina Sorcerer, really, really nice stuff. And then finally, guys, for the ultimate on this bar, Lyar has gone with Temporal Guard, and I really like this choice. Temporal Guard, of course, a fantastic ultimate, teleporting you back to where you were 4 seconds ago, restoring your health, stamina, and magicka to what they were as well. But while slotted, we also get that minor protection. So we have both major and minor protection on this build, which is a really big deal defensively. And yeah, Temporal Guard allows us to have that. Now, something I do want to mention is that this is a fairly fast build. We've got Streak, we've got Major Expedition, Minor Expedition. So Temporal Guard being a teleporting skill works really well with a faster build. So there you go. Just great synergy yet again on this spec. Now, let's take a look at the champion points on this build, guys. Starting off in the tower tree, Lyar's gone with 56 Warlord, 19 in Sprinter, and 1 in Siphoner. Big focus on Warlord, of course, because you have to break free in PvP, and then quite a few in Sprinting too, just because Sprinting's going to be important on this build. Of course, a Sorcerer is very mobile innately in PvP, so Sprint's just going to help you stay mobile, especially when we're in medium armor for that increased sprint speed. And I have 1 point in Siphoner here just because we had a point left over. Lyar ended up putting it in another tree there, but it doesn't really matter where you put this extra point. It's really up to you. So taking a look at the lover tree, Lyar's got 64 Mooncalf, 23 Arcanist, and 43 in Tenacity. Big focus on Mooncalf here for that stamina recovery. Stamina recovery being the most important stat for this build sustain-wise, and then Arcanist for a little bit more mag recovery, and then Tenacity for that bonus stamina return off the heavy attacks. Really good stuff, I think, especially with dual wield on the back bar, with the double splat heavy attack and the poisons, and the dual wield heavy being rather fast. Tenacity's a great option, even in medium armor. Now, the important passive we get here is, of course, wind running for that increased movement speed. 2% isn't a huge amount, but it all adds up at the end of the day. And then increased health and magicka recovery while sprinting is also fantastic as well, because we are in medium armor. Now, taking a look at the Shadow Tree, Lyar's got 51 Tumbling and 13 in Shadow Ward. Big focus on Tumbling here. Of course, that medium armor, we got to be doing a lot of roll dodging. He doesn't have as many points in Shadow Ward, but I think this is okay because he's stacked so many resists, the major minor protection on the build. You don't have to do a ton of blocking outside of preventing an incoming stun on this build. So yeah, I think this is totally appropriate. So taking a look at the next tree here, Lyar's actually got 37 in Blessed for a little bit additional healing power. Taking a look at the Atronach tree, he's got 81 Master at Arms to increase all of that direct damage that we do. A majority of the damage on this build is direct damage, so it's going to be great for the outgoing damage here. And then in the Ritual tree, Lyar's got 64 Mighty, 37 Piercing, and 51 in Precise Strikes. Big focus on Mighty here. I think the reason he went heavier in Mighty is because he is running the Spriggan set, so he wanted to up his tooltips as high as possible. And we didn't have the highest crit rate on this build, so I think the Precise Strikes being a little bit lower than Mighty is also a good call here too. Now, the important passives that Lyar gets is, of course, the Perfect Strike for a little bit more weapon critical, and, of course, Last Stand to get that major heroism when we fall below 20% HP. This is a huge deal, I think, because we have so much alt gen on this build already and so much going into the ultimates. Last Stand is just going to push that even further, allowing us to pump up more alts on this build. Now, taking a look at the Steed tree, we've got 56 Ironclad, 42 Resistant, and 16 in Medium Armor Focus. Quite a few points in the Steed tree here, just focusing on reducing incoming direct damage. A lot of burst in PvP is going to be direct damage, so this is definitely the way to go to reduce the incoming burst you take. And then Resistant for that additional critical resist, always really nice. And then a bit in the Medium Armor just to give us a little bit more physical resist on this build. Now, taking a look at the Lady tree, Lyar's got 37 Hardy, 56 Elemental Defender, and 28 in Thick Skin. Big focus on Elemental Defender here and a little bit less in Hardy. I think this is a little interesting that he put so many points here. I personally would take a few points out of this and put it into the Spell Shield, just so we have a little bit more spell resist on this build. But I think the reason that Lyar put so many points in this tree is because he wanted the Unchained passive. And the Unchained passive, of course, is going to give you a cheaper stamina skill within 5 seconds after using Break Free. So it just plays into the sustain as well. So that's honestly why I think Lyar has gone this route. And then he's got a bit in Thick Skin. Of course, have to have some Thick Skin. We don't have the Purge on the Stamsork, so we've got to have an answer to that damage over time. Now, taking a look at the Lord tree, Lyar's got 19 in Quick Recovery and 16 in Expert Defender. Interesting choice to go for the Expert Defender here. Of course, light and heavy attacks make up for around 20% outgoing damage in PvP, so it is nice to have that Expert Defender. Just reduce the amount of damage you take from that source, and then Quick Recovery for a little bit more healing power. And that is the build, ladies and gentlemen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into that PvP commentary. Of course, all of the footage is provided to us by the amazing Lyar himself. And yeah, first fight here, we've got Lyar inside a tower here and a lot of yellow players chasing him. He goes for a drop off the edge. One of the yellow players dropped down and he quickly dumps the Dawnbreaker into the execute, bringing that yellow player down. And Lyar's just going to reset his buffs and kite his way back in the tower. Another yellow chasing him from behind. Lyar turns around, dots him up with the blood craze and just going to go for a few dark deals here, get some resource back as he works his way further back inside the tower here, just keeping his buffs up, keeping his dark deal down for the healing power. And there we see the fully charged heavy attack into the Dawnbreaker, getting that 10% damage bonus off the heavy as well, and then going right away into the executioners on this player here. The enemy warden just pounding his heals, doing a great job just playing defensively here, and Lyar's going to be forced to just reset his buffs and reopen on these guys. And look at this brawler power right here. So much healing power coming from Surge, just allowing Lyar to stay on top of the enemy group there and apply pressure. Unfortunately, he is going to have to retreat, so he comes back up the side of the tower here, resets his buffs again, and he's going to open up with the Dawnbreaker on these guys there, quickly finishing that guy off with the Executioner, and then right away goes for the dot up on the next player. This guy's trying to res. Lyar's quickly going to bash him, go for the Dizzy Swing into the Execute, just putting really nice damage into him, hits him with this streak as well. This player just barely hanging on. Lyar gets a nice big crit on the Executioner there, finishing him off as well, and now he's got the last player here, and look at how fast he can dump the Dawnbreakers. So much alt gen on this build. And now for the next clip, Lyar is outside of Nickel here, and he's got a lot of yellow on top of him, just doing his kite around the rocks here, doing the dance, and just keeping his buffs up, keeping his heals down, and waiting for his opportunity to open on these guys here. The Surge, of course, working so well with the Hurricane and the Blade Cloak, and Lyar's going to go for a roll through the group and streak past them here. Sorry for a little bit of the skip there. It's just the clip itself had a little bit of a skip in it. But as he comes around the rocks, he hits these guys with a big Dawnbreaker, tries to go for the executes right away, but he's unable to capitalize. There's a lot of healing power there, and another friendly blue player is going to come in and help out. So Lyar's just going to go back behind the group. Look at the positioning here, how he weaves in behind them. Really good positioning just to stay out of focus here and try to pick one of these targets off. But look at that, the Earth Gore, the healing power coming in. Lyar unable to capitalize on the kill again, but he's got his Dawnbreaker ready. There we see the Dawnbreaker splash, finishing off that Warden, and he's going to go right on top of this next player here. The enemy Dragon Knight quickly leaps back on Lyar there. He gets immobilized, but Lyar just keeps his buffs up and continues to keep pressure on these guys. Hurricane plus the Surge plus the Blade Cloak, man. He's got so much healing power as long as he stays on top of his opponents, and Lyar quickly finishing off another kill there. And he's just going to bounce back a little bit here, just resetting his buffs and go for some Dark Deal, getting a bit of that stam back. His potion's down there too, and now he's going to reopen on the yellow group here. Just trying to hit them with a few heavy attacks, looking for his opportunity to hit a squishy target with a nice big Dizzy Swing, and then get a nice big combo on them. He's continuing to just stay behind the rocks here, channel the heavies, and trying to hit that opportune moment. Here we see the yellow have finally stacked up nice, a huge Dawnbreaker, the friendly player going for the leap as well, and they managed to pick up one kill, and Lyar just goes for the dot up, goes for the execute on this guy here, very low HP. He goes down as well from the friendly player, and now they're going to focus fire on this last yellow player here, as the other yellow have actually retreated back behind the other side of the rock. Lyar splashing another Dawnbreaker down, finishing off another player there. The alt gen on this build, man, he's just spitting out Dawnbreakers left and right. And now it's just a single poor yellow player left, and he's going to get brought down by Lyar and the friendly blues. Now, for the next clip, we've got another 2vx with Lyar and Speed kills, and Speed is going to be on, I believe, a Magicka Sorcerer. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know that's what he normally mains. And here we see both of them just working their way up. Oh, Speed's actually on a Magicka Warden, but they're working their way up into the back of this tower here, and the yellow are going to chase. Lyar's going to quickly open up, dot up on the first guy there, and he wants to hit this nice big Dawnbreaker. Speed goes into his ultimate too. There's the Dawnbreaker from Lyar. The other player gets caught by the stun in Speed's ultimate. Lyar trying to go for the execute there, but a lot of healing power coming in from the enemy red players here. So Lyar's just going to continue to try to work the next target here, just whipping him with the Dizzy Swings, trying to put the damage into this Sorc here, and the Sorc's just running around trying to kite out Lyar and Speed. A Magicka Sorcerer, man, if Lyar can hit him with a nice big combo here, he's in big trouble. There we see a beautiful Dawnbreaker splash into the Executioner, finishing off another red player there, and more red coming in the tower as Lyar and Speed just use the terrain here to move around and try to open up on these guys here. The Surge, of course, with the Hurricane, so much healing power. Lyar's got the Dawnbreaker, another splashdown, finishing off one player there, going for the executes on the next guy here, but he gets saved by the rest of the red players, and more red are slowly pouring into this tower here, and Lyar and Speed are forced into the top level. The Sorc follows them. Lyar gets him with a nice Dizzy Swing into the Executioners. The Sorc pounding his shields to stay alive here, and Lyar does not have the Fury buffs as he hasn't been under pressure there, So unfortunately, he didn't have the firepower to take him down, and the enemy negate coming down on speed there. Poor speed taking the meteor as well, but he's inside his ultimate, so he's going to be okay. Lyar working his way around the inside of this tower here, trying to position himself for a good smack on the back end of this red group, but they put a lot of pressure on him, and Lyar taking a lot of snares there as well. He goes for the forward momentum, just giving him that mobility, and right away goes into his heals, keeping his surge up too. The enemy soul assault coming in, and that surge working overtime, man. So much healing power. There we see a huge Dawnbreaker splash into the execute. 2 red players down, the 3rd red player down there, and now Lyar and Speed are going to turn right back onto the enemy group here. Speed goes into his ultimate here. Lyar's going to hit this guy with the dizzy swing, goes for the second one, the execute splash, finishing off another player, and there we see the Dawnbreaker come down into the execute. What a clean wipe on the group there. And finally, guys, for the last clip here, we've got another 1vx from Lyar. You can see he's got a lot of yellow players on top of him. He splashes a huge heavy attack Dawnbreaker on this guy, finishing him off with the Executioner there. And Lyar's going to kite back behind the terrain, reset his buffs here, and he's going to re-engage with this yellow group, quickly dotting up this next player. Hits him with a nice big dizzy swing, the second one into the Executioner, but he can't stay on top of that kill. He's taken a lot of pressure from the yellow group, so he just resets his buffs, goes for a kite back around again, and he's going to reopen on these guys here. The enemy Templar hits him with a big stun there. Lyar gets him with the counter Dawnbreaker. Nice big smack, but right away the enemy players responding with their ultimates as well. So Lyar's just staying on top of this terrain. Really nice set of rocks to work with here. And oh my gosh, a huge dizzy swing execute combo, quickly finishing that player off. Unfortunately, the other yellow player gets res, but Lyar right away goes for the pressure on top of him. He takes a huge heal from his friendly yellow player there, and Lyar is unable to capitalize on that kill. And he's going to turn onto this Templar here, and the Templar just being very tanky, man. He's got a lot of bulk and a lot of block power, and there we see Lyar gets him with a good dizzy swing, goes for the execute, but right away, a lot of healing power from the Templar. Lyar doing a good job sidestepping the Dawnbreaker from that other yellow player, and he's just going to continue to apply pressure to this Templar here. It's going to be tough to get kills as long as this Templar is up and healing people. Dots the Templar up really good, hits him with the Dawnbreaker. Unfortunately, the Templar responds really well, and Lyar's unable to capitalize, but he switches targets, and oh my gosh, quickly melting that other player. Look at all his stacks. He's at 5.3k weapon damage when he went for the kill there. Just a massive combo, and then Lyar's got this last Templar to work with here. So this is the part of the show where I'm going to let the rest of the clip run out for you guys. Can we hear it for Lyar? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sending that build in. What a fantastic build, fantastic footage as well. We, of course, have links to Lyar's YouTube channel and his Twitch down in the video description below, so please, please, please check out this guy's YouTube channel. He's a really nice guy, and he's been playing this game for a very long time, so I implore you guys to check out not only Stamina Sorcerer, but more stuff from him on his channel as well. So thank you again, Lyar. I really appreciate you sending the build in. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you guys are new here, hit that subscribe button. We've got regular ESO content almost daily on the channel, so be sure to stay tuned to check that stuff out. If you guys are interested in sending in your own builds to be featured on the channel, or if you guys want to send in clips for the top 5 PvP battles, you can of course send them to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. And if you guys are interested in checking out the live top 5 experience, or you just want to come hang out live on Twitch with me, you guys can find a link to my Twitch down in the description below as well. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers that give me better ping to my favorite games, and they're free to try for the first 14 days via the link below. So give them a shot if you guys want to try them out. No harm, no foul, because there is no credit card to sign up if it doesn't give you what you're looking for. And then finally, guys, if you really love the show, you can of course become a patron on Patreon. All of the support is really appreciated. I would not be able to do the job that I do without your guys' help. So thank you guys so much just for watching the show. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you guys for helping out if you choose to do so. Have a great night, everyone. A big shout out to Lyar yet again, and I hope to see you guys next time.